6:03 p.m. Can we get a roll call, please?
Director Proctor?
Here.
Director Valdez?
Here.
Director Miller?
Here.
Director Burnwood?
Here.
Director Goodson?
Here.
Director Berger?
Here.
Director Garcia?
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Would everybody please stand for the pledge of allegiance? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 5, consider approval of the agenda. In the case of an emergency, items may be added to the agenda by a majority vote of the board of directors. An emergency is defined as a work stoppage, a crippling disaster, or other activity that severely imperils public health, safety, or both. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order as their priority is determined by the board of directors. The board may take action on any item appearing on the agenda. Do we have an approval of the agenda or any adjustments that need to be made?
So moved.
I have a motion by Valdez and a second by Tisdale. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to item 6, public comments. At this time, the board will hear start that over. At this time, the board will hear comments on any agenda item. If any person wishes to be heard, he or she shall stand, address the president, identify self, and state the subject for the comment. Time limit for each speaker is 3 minutes total, not 3 minutes per item, but rather 3 minutes per speaker for all items on the agenda. A total of 15 minutes shall be allocated for each item for all members of the public. The board may find it necessary to limit the total time allowable for all public comments on items appearing on the agenda at any one meeting to 1 hour. And if you have a comment particular to a specific item on the agenda, I'm going to ask that you do it at that time. Do we have any public comments?
Jesus Solano, 426, Rosemont, Calexico. Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, the staff, and public. We appreciate and thank you for your tireless hard work. You as board members have invested exceptional effort in trying to consolidate the 3 healthcare districts as mandated by AB 918. We have endured the behavior of disruptive, detrimental, and dysfunctional Heffernan Board, which has completely lost its guideline principles, vision, and mission statement, commitment, integrity, excellence, transparency, and collaboration. After paying millions and millions of dollars for years as taxpayers, we were promised and sold a taxation to our community of Calexico for its healthcare service years ago. Now, we, the taxpayers, end up as landlords of a building at 400 Mary Street in Calexico. Heffernan, as an ethical board, has been planning on leasing this building to Dr. Tyson for $50,000 a year. My question is why? There is always a reason behind every decision a board makes. For example, the decision you are to take action on this evening, you take into consideration everything and you search in the best interest for whom you represent. I am not a CPA, but let me break it down for you. $50,000 per year, that breaks down to $4,166.66 per month. We do not know exactly the leasing agreement terms, which adds to our concern. You are professionals in different areas of government. Please tell me and try to convince our community if this is not a great deal, not for us, but for Dr. Tyson. This backdoor deal stinks and does not pass the smell test. At the end of the day, we are just landlords for after millions and millions of taxes paid by us. $50,000 per year will be our revenue benefit. This is stupidity compound stupidity. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
Sir, before you start, can you confirm whoever's going to give public comment? Can we have you double check that the microphone is on? If you,
Go ahead, ladies first.
yeah, so check the back and click, I think right here. There you go.
On the back of the mic.
On the back of the microphone.
Of the actual-
Oh.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Marit Hurtado. I am a resident of Calexico, California. I am the former, I was a mayor and a city council member, still very active in the community. Just recently the team leader for a very successful recall effort in our city. At the same time that we were going through our recall, 8918 was happening. It was really hard for our community group to educate our community about this. Many people in Calexico have no idea and no understanding what this is about. It's such an important thing that's happening today. It's something that many of us that do care about the Heffernan's activities has been waiting for a really long time. And as our previous speaker said, watching the mismanagement and the frustrations in knowing that our communities saved this money for this long and to end up like this. And so many of us in Calexico have expressed when we can what it is that we'd like to see with the remaining 2.5 million cash that this board has been handling. From the pandemic, I believe we had about a little over 6 million to today we have 2.5, and we still don't have that clinic open. So as you all know, Calexico is on a border. We are impacted every day by what happens at that border. So our firefighters are our lifesavers. They know us, they save us, they take care of us, but in a very unique way for our circumstances. But this is how we have survived for this long without a hospital. When we found out that we were the ones that were going to be financing with our cash for this to happen, and many of our board members didn't know what was happening, it was very uncomfortable, so we completely agreed that the dissolution be sooner than later. We have come here to ask that, because there is no trust in this board and the manner in which this is being handled, and because at the end of the day, we still don't have a hospital. But we're being meshed and we're being merged with two very huge organizations with huge amounts of assets and debt, but we don't have anything. We don't have anything to offer other than what we've always been giving to the El Centro and the Brawley hospitals is customers, people to be your patient. And we don't get any discounts for that. We're being treated exactly the same as any other patient. So why is it that Calexico still is in this position where we don't have someone to really feel like we're safe? We just had a shooting on Monday. It was very tragic. A gentleman shot his wife and then he shot himself in the chest. And when the first responders were at the scene, he was still alive. And of course, all of us in Calexico wonder, I'm going to give you a sad story, wonder what would have happened with his life if we would have had a hospital. Would he have made it? And so please understand that we come here very energized and very passionate because we live this. We stay in this city because we love it, because we love the people, we're passionate about who we are. And as you all know, we're standing our ground today because we're tired. We're tired of being kicked around and that we deserve good things too. So one thing we're going to ask you guys all is, you probably know what we want. We want you to send back those 2.5 million. If you take over Heffernan's activities today, send us back the 2.5 million to our community. Allow us, our solution would be to fix station number 2, because that is where we're at. We have a whole west side with no coverage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have any public comments?
Good evening, members of the audience and the board, Madam Chair. I'd like to compliment this board for the difficult task of putting this effort moving forward. You were selected and were appointed for this difficult task of AB 918. It has not been easy, as I witnessed yesterday in the press conference. Well, I applaud, even if you were not present, your spirit that was there. Your hard work, commitment, and dedication was obviously visible. I've seen you work diligently. Of all the boards that I've seen, whether they've been long-term or short-term, this is the one I trust the most. You've been very transparent. You've been very forthright. You have had agreements and disagreements that I've seen and witnessed, which you're allowed to have. You've been very transparent, number one. So I always know, I always feel comfortable when I come here. Unlike when I go to the county board, like, I know I read the agenda, I know I read the backup data, but I still have a gross list of questions. Some of them not clear. With you guys, it's very crystal clear. It's a breath of fresh air that our community of Imperial County finally needs and deserves of each and every one of you. I know there are people in the audience that wish they could be there, but unfortunately weren't selected. You guys were the selected ones, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Sir, can I get your name for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Pete Rodriguez, City of El Centro, 142 Driftwood Drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Oh,
They're not forcing me, but. Good evening, board. My name is Carla Flores. I am a resident of Calexico. The reason for my presence here today, first of all, thank you for taking this role. I'm sure it's not easy. You guys were put in this position, and you guys are doing the best you guys can. However, I am from Calexico. I am a property owner, and I do pay taxes under the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District. I live on the west side of Calexico, and we do not have a fire station. It's been more than 2 years. I'm also applauding my son for what he just mentioned right now. We do want to make sure that you guys make the right choices, that you guys seek the best interest for all of us, not only in Calexico, but Raleigh and El Centro. Help us keep those 2.5 million. That will help us tremendously to have Wheels Hospital in our city, which we call Hospital on Wheels. As you all know, we do have a couple of ambulances out there, but they're constantly being in the shop. So we really need those hospital on wheels in our city because we don't have a hospital. Anybody that is being picked up in the city of Calexico is being transferred all the way to Pioneers. And that's one of the reasons why maybe this gentleman was gonna die, the one on Wednesday or Tuesday, but he was transferred all the way to Raleigh. A lot could have happened if we would have had a hospital there. Unfortunately, we don't. We haven't had a hospital since 1993, I believe. So please take that into consideration. I am a cancer survivor, 16 years being cancer survivor, and I have no means of getting any assistance in my city. I have to travel either to El Centro or I go to San Diego. So please be considerate as what you guys are going to be doing, the decision that you guys are going to be making today in regards to our 2.5 million. Thank you.
thank you. Do you have any other public comments? Seeing none, now we'll move on to the consent calendar. Any member of the board, staff, or public may request that items for the consent calendar be removed for discussions. Items so removed shall be acted upon separately immediately following approval of the items remaining on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I have a question. And this was just me sometimes being picky, but when I read the minutes, it said met in regular session. Is that just, it was actually a special session meeting on the 21st, if I'm not mistaken?
That is correct.
Because our regular meetings are the second Thursday of each month.
Correct.
So I would just ask for that correction, and otherwise I would move to approve if there's not any other additions or corrections.
Also on that, there is a, on the roll call, there's a misprint. It says Daniel rather than Donald.
So is your motion to approve both changes?
Yeah.
I'm happy to make those revisions.
Sorry.
Don't worry.
We had staffing changes, so a law clerk in my office drafted these minutes. I apologize for the oversight.
So yes, I would move to approve them with those two corrections.
Do I have a second? I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Berger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? With that, we'll move on to item 8, board member comments. Do any of my board members have anything they'd like to report or comment on?
Well, last special meeting, we created an ad hoc PR committee, and just let everybody know we'll be meeting as an ad hoc committee tomorrow.
Do you have any minutes? If not, we'll move on. All right, now we'll move to item 9, IVHD expense and financial report.
This is just a receive and file item. There's no action necessary other than receive and file. But
There is a difference in the amounts, the building amounts is working on it. It's like $40-something thousand for.
Yes, and the county clerk is taking care of that. It's what's expensive, what's been paid. So there's two different ones, and she'll get clarification from us, from the person that's the audit.
With that, do you have any other questions? With that, we'll move on to item 10, consideration of possible action to approve the following actions. And item A is discussion and action regarding hiring of IVHD staff in light of Heffernan actions.
so I'll introduce this item, Madam Chair. We were informed that at a past June board meeting, the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District took action to terminate not only funding for IVHD, but to also terminate those at Heffernan that are staff from providing administrative and clerical services to IVHD. We also understand that on July 3rd, the Heffernan board rescinded or reconsidered the suspension of funding and rescinded that action. But I would ask the Heffernan board member or the Heffernan CEO to clarify what actions were taken with respect to Heffernan staff providing administrative and clerical services to IVHD, because my understanding is that Heffernan staff was in some way disallowed to assist IVHD with administrative and clerical services. And so if that is the case, these folks have generously agreed to continue providing some services, for example, reserving this room, assisting to prep and post agendas on the website. But if that needs to stop for whatever reason, which would be very inefficient, but if that needs to stop for whatever reason, then this board needs to consider hiring someone to assist with that, because without the Heffernan staff assisting in the administrative and clerical services for this board, the only employee you have or contractor is me, and I am far too expensive to be posting stuff on. It doesn't make any legal sense for me to be doing administrative or clerical tasks for this board. It doesn't make a financial sense for this board. So you should consider either, we should get clarity on what resources this board has, and if you don't have the resources you think you have, then I would recommend that you direct me or one of you to hire or find somebody to provide those services between now and at least the next board meeting. And maybe this is something we can do meeting to meeting, or, I don't know. But it's a worthwhile item for discussion, so that there is an administrative person who is able to, for example, prepare the minutes. For these minutes, we had our law clerk, who's still a law student, prepare the minutes so that it's like as inexpensive and economic as possible. But there's probably someone out there who can do it for even less money, and so that's an example of services that this board needs as we continue to grow and function.
So did Heffernan ever send over the resolutions, or were they just expecting us to hear the news?
I haven't received anything myself.
I haven't received anything.
Also, I'd like to know, does Heffernan have the legal authority to stop a funding source or funding mechanism that has been approved by AB 918 unanimously by the state of California?
No, so that's unlawful, and we did let the Heffernan board know that through a letter from this board. And because the action's been rescinded, you know, that's a good step. But the Heffernan board is obligated by AB 918 to either provide the staff necessary for administrative and clerical functions, or to fund administrative and clerical services if for whatever reason their staff is not going to do it. So the funding source is the same. I continue to think it makes the most economic sense to continue using the Heffernan staff that we have available to us because they know how to do it, and you know, it's a pretty limited role for now. But
That is my question. What's the legality on the Heffernan board dictating
No,
what this board will hire?
no, there's no authority for them on who they can and cannot hire. There's also, especially if the employees are independent contractors, there's no authority for them to dictate where you can work and who you can work for. So of course, this is America, and we don't get to do that kind of stuff.
So in essence, IVHD can hire the same people?
Correct. We can hire, IVHD can hire whoever it likes for whatever tasks it deems appropriate.
So just to clarify, so as things stand now, since they rescinded their action, so they're still funding us and they're still providing us the clerical assistance, or they're not?
So,
Just the funding?
as far as I'm aware, well, that's a good question. Yeah.
So at the last meeting, the Heffernan Memorial Care District Board rescinded the first action, which was to suspend funding for IVHD. The second action was to fund the staff, and they not want the staff to work here. So when they rescinded the first action, that was rescinded, so they're continuing to do it. And they said that was based on El Centro stepping up and also helping with fund IVHD. But on their second action, they said they would fund for the administrative help and clerical help and legal help, provided that Heffernan staff would not help IVHD. That was a special meeting. I don't believe it's been ratified, and they have not done a resolution. But I'm sure that Mr. Valdez and I could take that to them so they could provide such language or maybe enter into a discussion to find out what we can do next.
So does Heffernan have any actual staff that they give paychecks to? I mean, I understand they pay their contractors.
They're all contractors.
Tomas, just to clarify, are you a contractor or are you an employee?
Contractor.
So they're trying to dictate their no real staff?
Yes.
So again, the obligations under AB 918 are to provide administrative employees or the financial means to hire administrative employees. So I think it would be prudent for this board to have like a backstop. So if for whatever reason we don't have Heffernan providing administrative employees, which for now we are, thankfully, but if for whatever reason that stops, they would still have to finance the administrative employees, but who would that be? You know, so how does this board want to deal with that?
I mean, I think we should reach out to like a temp agency
Right.
and get a clerk,
Yeah,
knowing it's gonna be very limited hours.
right.
So I'd like to know, if you're on a contract, is it like on a month by month basis, or is it yearly basis? What is?
It's, right now on a month-to-month, they have not done a new agreement. They started making changes to it, but they have not ratified them yet. So it's been changing month-to-month the last couple of months. But there's been a big push to change the status quo and to pretty much they didn't want our staff working for IVHD.
Did they say why?
Nope, we're not allowed in the conversation for performance.
So one of my concerns is that, I mean, we're going through change, right, as an organization for the benefit of the community. When you have any kind of change in an entity, you always have a transition period. So normally what happens is you keep a certain amount of people when they've been doing an advance into another venture, so that you can have that fluidity going into the next organization. So
That was raised, but at that last meeting, there was only 3 members present, and I believe they were all in in agreement to make that recommendation that we did. But that, the good point was raised, Director Crockett.
I guess so my issue is this, that although we don't have control over any other board, if I was on that board, I wouldn't vote for that because I know that in the end, there is no other option. And then it leaves it up to us, or this board, to make a determination like this, and then what do you do?
So an idea, an option is, in the event we are informed that we don't have administrative employees from Heffernan to assist us, I could do one of two things. This board could delegate some authority to, for example, your board chair and myself, or one board member and myself to carry out certain tasks. So we could follow up with Heffernan employees directly, or Heffernan staff, I shouldn't call them employees because they're not, Heffernan contractors directly, to see if we could engage in a kind of temporary staffing contract directly with them, or pursue a temp agency type position so that we could have a temporary non-Heffernan affiliated contractor to help provide services for this board.
And then we have a couple of public comments.
Okay.
Pablo Valdez, CEO.
The mic, yeah.
The mic is-
Pablo Valdez, CEO at ECRMC. I make a commitment to offering clerical help, so you can count on that.
Great.
Council Solano, 426, Rosemont. So now you have an idea of what we've been dealing with for the rest of the years, after paying millions and millions of dollars. I'll be honest and upfront with this board. I was not in agreement when I found out that we were going to be paying for all these liabilities, okay? But however, that's the way it went down. Yesterday, I spoke to Mr. Garcia and asked him, that's not fair, it's supposed to be across the board. He says, yes, I understand that. But however, the only ones that were willing to open the door, the loophole, was Heffernan Board. So now we gotta pay the price, okay? I don't agree with that, but we need to move forward. But this is just an example. This is the board. You guys are powerful, okay? Don't underestimate yourself. You guys have authority and you guys have power, okay? And this board from Calexico is trying to bully you guys and pressure you guys to do something that's not supposed to be done. They volunteered without the consensus of the citizens, the taxpayers, to pay up. Now, they want to go back. My recommendation to this board is slap them across with a 2x4.
Thank you. So with the consider.
Thank you. Diana Nundikumbo, I'm a resident of Calexico. I haven't been too involved in this. I've been reading the last couple of weeks, and this is my first meeting, but I'm also a business owner, so I'm a business person, and I would just like to make a suggestion. Maybe we can consider a win-win situation here where there's obviously no point in keeping the Heffernan board because obviously consultants charge a lot of money for practically doing nothing or making the decisions that we hear that they're making, which are, I guess, go against what the law is now. But I would suggest to dissolve the board immediately. There's no point for them. And maybe take part of that money for your administration, see how much we need, being that it's your mission, healthcare, and the only healthcare we have right now, excuse me, I was joking. The only healthcare we have right now in Calexico is our hospital on wheels, which is our fire department and our ambulance services. So maybe if we can come to a consensus where part of this money can help us finish off fire station number 2, and then the rest would be yours for your administrative fees. That's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Could I have a clarification from our legal, what 918 says about the money?
Sure. It says that until the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District and the Pioneers Memorial Healthcare District are dissolved, the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District shall hold a temporary clerical role to the Board of Directors of IVHD. And the clerical responsibilities shall be limited to providing administrative employees or the financial means to hire administrative employees, providing the financial resources to complete clerical tasks for board meetings and public meetings. These tasks include creating agendas for public meetings and board meetings, setting meetings, location, dates, and times, ensuring the transfer of existing healthcare districts into IVHD with minimal interruptions to ongoing healthcare services.
Pardon, with the assets and the assets of Heffernan, what's going to happen with that money? So the public.
Upon dissolution,
Right.
it will become the property and assets and liabilities of IVHD. Yes.
Thank you.
I would make a suggestion that we move toward establishing our own contractual services so that the contractors come under our umbrella rather than having our services be interrupted based off of whatever the atmosphere is of a board that has no authority over the Imperial Valley Healthcare District. And us being the successor agency, I would think that it would be in our best interest to have our own contracts in place so that when the imminent, dissolution happens, that we can continue to move on seamlessly without interruption.
I second.
I agree with Board Member Millard, but in the meantime, we can keep whoever we have here providing services up and until we get those people on board.
And I would assume that those contracts would mirror similar to what contracts are currently in place under a separate healthcare district. And I don't anticipate that those would be exceptionally lengthy to draft. And so I would make the motion to ask our legal services person to begin to draft those documents so that we can bring somebody on. And in the meantime, we keep the staff that we, or the contractors that we currently have.
Great. I'll bring that, pending a second and vote, I can bring those contracts back
Second.
to this board at the next board meeting.
So, in addition to that, so what we have here is the expense report from Heffernan. So what happens is it allows for a lot of questions, right? Because it's not very detailed. So should we do what Donald said? I would like the invoicing to be a little bit more precise, not just like a blanket figure. I'd like to know exactly what we're paying, what's the rate. Is it an hourly rate? Is it a monthly rate, et cetera? And then and then define what those duties are so that we know we're getting our benefit of buck. Because however much they're paying the current contractors doesn't mean that that's what we should be paying. Well, whether it's higher or lower or what have you.
So I'll bring back contracts, and the contracts, draft contracts, and the contracts will say all of the terms, the hourly rate, the minimum or maximum hours per month, for example. I will use, for example, the Heffernan contracts as a baseline to make sure we're not too far off what we could consider maybe market for this area. But and then in the meeting, you can look at them, you can ask questions, you can change them, you can make recommendations, and the board can take action on the proposed contracts at the next board meeting. But all of that information will be in the agreements, and they won't be too long because it's pretty straightforward.
Also, could we add the description of the
Scope of services?
Yes.
Sure. So that's not a change that we would make to the expense report, because expense reports are supposed to be sort of higher level summary of expenses, but for sure the detail on scope of services and what they're getting paid for will be in their agreement, in their contract.
And I believe that is directly toward our aim of transparency. And
Yes.
so if we are going to be truly transparent, then that itemization to happen on those types of things, and to really show the public what is being paid for and how those funds are being exhausted, would lead to a lot less headache on the other end, where we don't have people making the same statements that they're making about other healthcare districts about the way that the money is being spent, and there's absolutely no question as to where that money is going.
Yep.
All right, so I have a motion by, I have one more question also to, on the scope of
Service.
service. I would definitely want to also add that they maintain our website and make sure things are posted timely on the website, so therefore we have access to things before the meetings and not just at a time.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Any more comments?
I second that.
Sorry. It's all good. I had a moment, it's 118 seen outside, no objection. I have a motion by Medard Jr. and a second by Garcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to item B, discussion and action to retain financial strategists.
So this is a kind of standing holdover item from the last board meeting. I did get a chance to speak with the general counsel of Preston Hollow once again, and they are strongly recommending, and then have made a recommendation for Peter Chadwick at Berkeley Research Group. They also made a second recommendation, but that's one of the people they really thought had a lot of experience with healthcare finance and operations. And they'd really like to see, they believe that getting this person involved sooner will assist in the negotiations with UCSD and ECRMC, and will help this board get more, for example, details regarding finances moving into the future. So they're really urging this board to retain a financial strategist. So I wanted to bring it back to the board for discussion. If you'd like to, I haven't reached out to this person. I haven't done anything yet because I know we thought it maybe was too soon at the last board meeting. But as we head into the summer of diligence with ECRMC and UCSD, I do think it would be wise to get this person on board sooner rather than later. And what I could do is chat with this person, bring back a proposal for consideration at the next board meeting so that you can see rates, scope of services, what type of stuff they're going to do for you, and maybe meet this person. So.
Can we get proposals from both firms that are recommended? That way we can kind of see. And then also, when we do, this financial strategist, if possible, could they work with us as we dissolve Heffernan and start searching, going through their finances as well?
Yes, absolutely. That person, the financial strategist would help with both ECRMC and Heffernan and eventually Pioneers. So, okay, so I'll bring back, maybe we can have a motion and a vote, but my notes are to bring back proposals from financial strategists recommended.
I would move to give you direction to do that for us, to bring back proposals from both entities.
Okay.
I'll second.
Got it.
I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Berger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstain, or any, huh? Yeah. Any noes? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to item C, discussion and action to approve resolution 2024-038, amended resolution of the Board of Directors of Imperial Valley Healthcare District, determining pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 32499.6 as added by California Assembly Bill 918, the recommended date on which Heffernan Memorial District will be dissolved.
And I'll take this one, Madam Chair. So this is an amended resolution that's really responsive to the Heffernan Board's actions over the past month. Initially, as you recall, we recommended, this board adopted a resolution at the June board meeting to recommend a dissolution date of October 1 for the Heffernan Board in an attempt to consider and be thoughtful about requests coming in from the Heffernan Board with respect to potential ribbon-cutting ceremonies for their urgent care. But in light of the disruptive actions that the board has taken over the past month, there was some discussion about whether, I had discussion with members of our ad hoc committee regarding whether or not it made sense to bring back a proposed amended resolution with a sooner dissolution date. As you can see in the resolution that was posted online and attached to the agenda packet, the date, the recommendation is blank, so that this board can talk about what makes sense. We intend to and have discussed the Heffernan dissolution with LAFCO and don't see any huge red flags with dissolving Heffernan sooner. And it's really for discussion, open for discussion about whether or not you think it should happen sooner. And again, this resolution that is before the board, if adopted, wouldn't dissolve Heffernan today. It's merely a recommendation to LAFCO about when LAFCO would dissolve Heffernan, because LAFCO is the entity with the authority to pull the trigger on dissolution. But we are required by AB 918 to recommend a dissolution date. This board has already done that. This is just, do you want to recommend a different date in light of the disruptive actions taken by the Heffernan board? Do we think that's wise? If so, let's fill in the blank and forward that to LAFCO for consideration. I'm aware they have a board meeting this month, later this month. I don't know if they're gonna meet in August, but it's worth a discussion.
The next board meeting's on July 25th. I think we have a
Good evening, board, the directors. I'd like to thank you for all of your hard work. I've been in healthcare for 39 years, and I've worked with hospitals, healthcare districts, and this is a lot of heavy lifting, so I commend you for that.
Can you introduce yourself?
Blanca Morales, Calexico, resident of Calexico. I am writing to express my urgent recommendation for immediate dissolution of Heffernan Healthcare District. As a grassroots medical provider deeply rooted in Calexico community, I have witnessed firsthand the concerning path of Heffernan Healthcare District operations and their impact on our community. As of today, Heffernan Healthcare District has disengaged all relationships with medical providers in Calexico, leaving a critical void in healthcare access for our residents. Furthermore, this persists in disturbing patterns of mismanagement of taxpayers' money with little to no transparency or accountability in their financial practices. This lack of oversight has eroded public trust in Heffernan Healthcare District, an institution meant to be the cornerstone of our community healthcare infrastructure. In 2018, the hiring and subsequent compensation of an executive board, an executive director of healthcare, Heffernan Healthcare District, exemplifies his mismanagement. The director's compensation is in evidence by their 1099. His 1099 reveals an excessive salary and unjustified annual increase. More troubling is the director's apparent disconnect from our community, evidenced by a complete absence of meaningful relationships with local nonprofits, community-based organizations, and medical providers. This disconnect underscores Heffernan Healthcare District failure to engage with those it serves and to prioritize community health needs effectively. As a medical provider committed to serve the needs of Calexico residents, I strongly urge the board to take immediate action towards the dissolution of Heffernan Healthcare District. This decision is necessary to safeguard the well-being of our community and to ensure that taxpayers' dollars are utilized responsible and transparently in providing essential healthcare services. Thank you for your attention to this critical matter. I look forward to seeing prompt and critical action from the board in addressing these present concerns.
Thank you for your comments.
And I've also attached how much money the director has been making for the last 6 years. And you'll also have copies of his 1099. That's just one example. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments?
Councilor Solano. I am respectfully requesting this board to move on the resolution, making decision today. Don't procrastinate on something that has to be done. We will also be addressing our concerns to NAFTA, was our concerns too. And I just forgot to mention earlier, there's also about $500,000 floating on the property that was purchased. Well, at least they gave the down payment for property for the on the mega project out there in 111. So that's a great concern. We don't know exactly if that $500,000 is earning interest or not. Okay, so once you do your own audit, you'll find out what's going on right there. And you already know that you don't have no use for this board and for staff. And the same thing happens to us. When we go out there and ask for a question, no answer. Nobody wants to assume responsibility. Nobody's held accountable. And just a point of information. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
So is our, oh, sorry, I just wanted to ask real quick. Can we fill in with like as soon as possible, or do you have a recommended date that we should be picking to be responsible and moving up the date?
I recommend choosing a date, just because that's what AB 918 it asks for a date, like a date certain. And LAFCO, of course, doesn't have to accept that date, they can choose a different date. But for that reason, I don't recommend putting ASAP. I think you should say, you know, July 25, if you want LAFCO to take action at their July 25 board meeting, or August 1, or you could put tomorrow. I mean, whatever you think is prudent. I don't recommend tomorrow. If I had to make a recommendation about soonest possible date that would be responsible with respect to giving LAFCO a heads up, then I would say July 25, so that they could take action at their board meeting. That may even be too soon for LAFCO, but I hope maybe they could do it.
Really quickly, since we as a community group are watching the different activities, the expenses of the Heffernan and what has been happening with those funds, because again, we see it as our savings that this community saved for, I think, 30 years. Within the last, I would say then, since the pandemic, a lot has been spent by this administration that we're very unhappy about, and why we feel we need to take it out of their hands as soon as possible, is because there was a lot of granting happening. For example, Dr. Vo received, I believe, $500,000 for a program out in Calexico for the uninsured. And so we felt as taxpayers that didn't come back to us, the persons who actually paid for that. And we actually right now don't know if there was any liability insurance, because those services were provided under the Vo nonprofit, but we never saw any liability insurance. In other words, medical insurance, because they were out in a street team seeing the homeless people. So we don't even know if there's any liabilities out there that are existing. There was never any reporting coming back to us. We don't know who was served. So we want to make sure that besides the fact that we're going to look at the finances, to understand who was served with all that money. So I really want to appreciate that inclusion.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I was informed, and I did confirm on the Imperial LAFCO website, they have a board meeting on July 17 and a board meeting July 25. I still think July 17, just given the fact that it's 6 days away, they may have, they may want to prepare a staff report, and that might not be enough time for LAFCO to prepare a staff report 6 days from now, and then also post it before the 72-hour deadline. So I still think maybe July 25 is a more prudent date.
I would actually like July 19th. Yesterday at the meeting we heard from the public. We also heard from the Heffernan president saying how supportive they are of our district. So I don't see why we would have to wait, longer than the 19th. I think that would give them plenty of time. But more importantly, I think by doing this, you have it, citizens from Calexico here voicing a concern that I've been hearing for the last few months. So I think that in order to give them pause in their concerns and have a little bit more confidence in our board, I would prefer the 19th, and I think that would get plenty of time for LAFCO as well. It's a week and a couple of days. That's my recommendation. The 19th of July.
I'll second that.
Do you have any other board member discussions?
I guess I just have a question. If we're going to pay the 19th, then it would be decided at the meeting on the 25th if they're meeting on the 17th. Would it be retroactive then?
They can't retroactively dissolve, but they could just, I mean, if, for example, if this board chose tomorrow as the recommended date, obviously that's not enough time for LAFCO to take action and actually dissolve Heffernan by tomorrow. But they could take that into consideration in picking their own date and saying, well, IVHD wanted July 12. Here we are, it's July 25. And, this is the chance we've had to get a staff report together and figure out what that looks like in terms of notice to the county elections official, notice to the state, notice to, you got to give out notices before you're dissolving a healthcare district. So, I think that pretty much assures that it wouldn't actually happen that date. It would just mostly be ceremonial, sending a message that you want to dissolve them as soon as possible. But if you want a date that LAFCO could bless, you know, like, yes, we're gonna pick the same date that IVHD recommended, then I don't think there's probably a sooner date than July 25th.
I'll make an amendment to the motion for July 25th to be the resolution date.
What was there ever an official motion?
So,
There wasn't an official motion, I was just recommending that date.
So I'll make the official motion.
Okay.
I'll make the official motion to approve resolution 2024-03A, which amends the resolution of the Board of Directors of the Imperial Valley Healthcare District determining pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 32499.6 as added by the California Assembly Bill 918-2023, recommended date in which Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District be dissolved, with the sixth whereas to read 7/25/24, and that is the official date with non-ceremonial action that the LAFCO can take action, and also on section 1 on the now therefore be it resolved with that same date of 7/25/24. And I make this motion because I have seen the recent actions of the Heffernan Healthcare Board, and I believe that it is very irresponsible, and I believe that the Assemblyman and the Senator made a very good comment about this not being about us. This is about the valley as a whole and all of the patients that are within the valley, and I think that it is irresponsible to make decisions like that. And yes, initially we did give consideration for the board to make a stance or to be there for ceremonial reasons, but I think that all of that went out the door when they made decisions that went against the law and went against what was best for the people of the Imperial Valley. So I make that motion.
I'll second.
sorry, who was our second?
Valdez.
I'm with you in spirit.
Sorry, James.
To the third.
I have a motion by Menard Jr. to dissolve Heffernan on July 25 and a second by Mr. Valdez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And with that, we'll move on to item 11, update regarding AB 918 negotiations with El Centro and ECRMC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some quick updates. We are entering the diligence process with El Centro and ECRMC. We've been in touch with El Centro's and ECRMC's legal counsel. They are uploading diligence records to the share file site. Excuse me. And things are proceeding. We're going to continue to keep the ad hoc negotiation committee updated with updates when they happen, which right now there have been nothing significant has happened because we're just in a diligence process. Excuse me, I don't know why I have to tickle my throat. So that is the update right now with respect to AB 918 negotiations with El Centro and ECRMC.
All right, do I have any questions? If not, we'll move on to item 12, items for future agenda.
I'll defer to my board, but I do have items for future agenda for your consideration, but let me cough it out.
Okay, well, while you're coughing it out, we'll be coming back with the financial strategist proposals as well as the information for us to get our own staffing. Yes, those will definitely be on there. And then
Yes, I have two items right now on the to-do list. One is on admin, bring back contracts for independent contractors. I've got two in mind, administrative coordinator and a website consultant. But I'll confer with, for example, the board chair and see if we think we need others. I don't think we need others. The second thing to bring back is financial strategist proposals. Bring back proposals from financial strategists from both firms recommended by Hudson Hollow. A couple of other items for a future agenda. At the next board meeting, we'll have to have, we don't have general counsel update agendized here, but since it's not an action item, we'll just give you a quick update on other AB 918 related items. Today, Pioneers Memorial Healthcare District filed in the legal action that they filed against this board, against LAFCO. They filed a motion for a preliminary injunction, which is a request to the court to order IVHD and LAFCO not to dissolve Pioneers until the lawsuit is resolved, until the question of who's right, who wins the lawsuit is decided. The date, that's a public document, the date for that hearing on the preliminary injunction is September 26th. So that's unfortunately another filing that we will have to oppose, which will mean more legal fees incurred by this board or another filing filed by Pioneers. And the Attorney General will also have to oppose it, and so will LAFCO. So that's 3 public entities spending public money, defending another filing. Hopefully, we can get that briefing stayed. I plan to reach out to Pioneers Council and LAFCO's council and the AG's office to see if we can get that briefing stayed, because there are motions to dismiss that have been filed. All of this is public information. There are motions to dismiss that have been filed that are potentially dispositive. So if we win that motion to dismiss, the entire action goes away and the preliminary injunction is moot, right? It's unnecessary. So that's just an update on that litigation, and don't want sticker shock if next month expenditures come back, and the public or anyone is wondering why legal fees are high. It's because you keep getting stuff filed against you in court. One of the reasons. The other item for a future agenda for consideration would be a proposed loan from ECRMC that was offered partially in response to this board's request for additional funding from the city and from ECRMC. So that will come back on a future agenda item. It's an offer from ECRMC to supply this board with funding, and we have to take a look at it and see if this board wants to consider the terms of the agreement. And those are the items that I can think of right now for a future agenda and that are impacting this board.
I have one question. Do we have our own bank account already, or?
No, we spoke to Chase Bank, and it's still a sub-account of Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District. They've asked us for some requirements so that we can establish your own account, and that would be once we establish our EIN and some formation items.
With that, I'll adjourn this meeting at 7:01 p.m. Thank you.